Kesubos Daf is a short daf, but it contains 5 separate cases of monetary issues where people are trying to pull some kind of trick and whether it works or not. So the first case is where Reuven sold a field to Shimon and he told him, I'm not taking responsibility over it. If one of the people who I owe money to come and take the field away as payment for the loan, I'm not restoring it to you. I'm not going to pay you back for that. You should know you're purchasing the field with no guarantees. Then Shimon went and he sold the field back to Reuven, and he guaranteed the sale to Reuven. He said that if somebody takes this field away from you, then I guarantee I'll replace it for you. Then what ended up happening was that somebody who Reuven owed money to came and took the field away. Now, had Reuven never sold it, he would have taken it from Reuven. Had Shimon never sold it to Reuven, he would have taken it from Shimon. Now that Shimon sold it to Reuven, he took it from Reuven. So the question is, does Shimon now have to pay back Reuven because the field that he sold him was taken away and he took responsibility to replace it? So Rabbi Bar Chama says, yes, Shimon has to pay him back for the field. He took responsibility for it. Rava said, no, he only took responsibility to pay back the field if it's lost for some other reason that would have applied to him. If it's lost because of Reuven's own Baal Chov, Reuven's own lender who he owes money to, that he never took responsibility for. However, says the Gemara, Rava agrees that if it would be Reuven's father that owed money, and this Baal Chov owed money, this Baal Chov had a right to collect money from Reuven's father, let's say from Yaakov, and Yaakov had died and Reuven inherited the obligation, and therefore the person came to collect the field because it was Yaakov's debt, that's not Reuven's responsibility. And Shimon, who owes that, he, in that case, Rav agrees that Shimon has to replace the field because it was taken away from because of a debt of someone else, that is Yaakov. We don't say that's considered to be Reuven's debt. The next scenario also comes from Rabbi Bar Chama. This case is where Reuven sold a field to Shimon on credit. Shimon never actually paid for the field. It was a loan he was holding. It was the price of the field was loaned to him. He still owed it to Reuven. Then Reuven died, and a creditor who he owed money to came and took the field. Came to try to take the field away from Shimon because the field was mortgaged to Reuven's obligation. So what Shimon decided to do is he said, listen, I never paid for the field. I'm going to take the money, the price of the field, and I'll give it to you. Instead of taking my field away, here's the money that I owe for it. And he gave it to the Baal Chov. Then Shimon went to Reuven's children, and then Reuven's children came to Shimon and said, you owe us for the field. You bought this field from our father. You never paid for it. Shimon said, I did pay for it. I gave the money to the Baal Chov. You would have to replace the field for me anyway. So the children said, no, you did it incorrectly because we're not Reuven, we're Reuven's Yisomim. And the halacha is that a Baal Chov cannot take mitaltalin away from Yisomim. We have no land. So he would have not been able to take any land from us. And if he would have taken land, he could have tried to take the land away from you. But you ended up giving him mitaltalin. Metaltalin he couldn't have gotten not from you and not from us, because the metaltalin of Yisomim, the movable objects of Yisomim, are not meshubit. So you gave him something you didn't have to do, so you still owe us the money. You gave him metaltalin which was not meshubit, and therefore that doesn't count as if you paid our chov. He never took the land away from you, and therefore you still have our land and you have to pay for our land. So says the Gemara, that's the halacha, but Rava adds in that there is a way out. Shimon could do is he could say to them, you know what? I owe you 1,000 zuz, fine. I'm paying you. I'm giving you the field back. Now you have a field. This field is now considered to be an inheritance that you got from your father because you got it as payment for an obligation that I had to your father. I owed money to your father. I didn't owe money to you. And when I pay an obligation to your father, that becomes your father's property that you inherited. Now there's land. That land is land that you inherited from your father. That is meshubed to the payment that everybody deserves to get from you. Now he could turn around and say, now you have to give me the land back because now you have karka. I had money taken away from me that your father owed, and now you have to replace it, and you have land now. So therefore, you can give it back to me. There is a shibud on the land of Yisomim. There's no shibud on the money of Yisomim. So when I came to you and you didn't have any land, you said there's no shibud on money of Yisomim. I can't get anything from you. But now you have land, and therefore there is a shibud on it, and you have to give it back to me. Now the Gemara introduces its next case. This requires a bit of introduction. So there are 3 levels of land quality. There's Idis, which is the highest level. There's Veinonis, which is the middle level, and Ziburus, which is the lowest level. The halacha is that a Baal Chov, somebody who's owed money as a already payable and due debt, collects from the Veinonis, the middle land. So if there is the pick of all 3, he gets the middle level. Now, if the person who owes the money, let's call him the Lovet, the borrower, if he sold some of his land, then the Malvet, that's the one who is collecting the money, cannot take land that was sold as long as there is still land in the possession of the Lovet. He can't come and say, hey, wait a second, I want the Baininist land and you sold it, I'm going to go take it from the guy who bought that from you. You can't do that. As long as there's land, even if the land that's left over in the possession of the Lovet is only Ziburis, it's only the lowest level, he still has to take that. Now, anytime there's any land left, the shibud is only on the land that's left. It doesn't go on land that's bought unless it was all bought. Now, the Gemara has a case where the land was sold and then it was sold again. So you had Ruvain who owes money, and then Ruvain sold all his fields in one shtar to Shimon. Now, none of those fields are any different than any other ones as far as collecting the money that Ruvain owes, because none of them are left behind after the other ones. Therefore, they're all equally meshubed. If there is Veinonis there, so then the Baal Chov has to come. He has the right to come and say, I want the Veinonis because that's what he's owed. Now, what happens is, now then Shimon went and he sold just some of the land. He sold one field to Levi. So here the halacha is as follows. If the Malva wants, he can go to Levi and say, you have the Veinonis, I want the Veinonis Badafka. I don't have to settle for Ziburis that you left behind. This is only true if he bought the Veinonis and he bought all the Veinonis and leave any Veinonis behind. If he left some behind, then he has to take the Veinonis that Shimon still has. If he bought all of it, he can go to Levi and he doesn't have to go first to Shimon and take what he has left. Now, had it been Ruvain, he would have to take whatever he has left, even if it's not the Baininus. But because it's not Ruvain's, it's Shimon's, and Shimon is not the original one who sold it, he can say that I want the Baininus from Levi. Now, he could also choose the other way. He could also choose to say that if Shimon has Idis, he wants to take that from him, because he has a right to choose whichever one he wants. He has a right to say, I don't want to go all the way to Levi, I want to come to Shimon. Or he has a right to say, I want the Baininus, I don't want to settle for what you left behind. The next case is where Reuven sold the field to Shimon with responsibility. Obviously, he said that if someone comes and it takes the field away from me, I'm going to replace it. Then, lo and behold, somebody that Reuven owed money to came and took the field away from Shimon. And now Reuven wants to come with tainas. He wants to go to court against the Baal Chov. He wants to argue against him. And it could be that Reuven has a stronger position. Like, for example, if he has another case pending against him that he can make him swear, then he has something called Gilgul Shua. He could make him swear on this also, even if Al Pidin he's not allowed to. So Reuven wants to argue against the Baal Chov. The Baal Chov says, this has nothing to do with you. This is between me and Shimon. I'm taking the land away from Shimon. You're not in this story anymore. You have no right to argue. So the Gemara says it's not correct. Reuven does have a right, and it could be Mechayiv Meshua if he has the right to do that. Shimon would not be able to. And the reason is because he's going to have to restore the field to Shimon, and therefore it's very much is negayah to him. Says the Gemara, even if he doesn't have any responsibility to Shimon, and he won't have to restore the field to Shimon, he's still a Baal Dvarim. He still has standing here to argue in court, and that's because he could say Shimon's going to have complaints against me. Even if I don't have any financial obligation to him, I do have a certain responsibility to make sure that the field that he bought from me, he gets to keep. The Gemara now introduces its final case, and that's when Reuven sold a field to Shimon without a guarantee, so that if something happened and Shimon loses the field, Reuven is not going to replace it. And then before the sale was completed, there's complaints. People say that the field's not really his, or that he owes money, and that Shimon's going to end up losing the field. So Shimon wants to back out of the deal. So the question is, at what point did he take title of the field that he can no longer back out of the deal? So the Gemara doesn't speak about where money was given yet. So obviously we're talking about where no money was given. Rashi says, had money been given, that would be the transfer of title. The alternate transfer is when he does what's called chazaka, and that's he actually takes control of the field and he does something to it to show possession, which the Gemara defines as if he walks around the edges, the borders of the field to inspect it and to see what it needs. That shows ownership, and therefore it's transfer of title. He can't get out of it anymore. Now, the reason that he could say to him, you can't get out of the deal anymore, is because you knew that there was no guarantee here. And even if you're going to lose it, you bought it without a guarantee. You knew that there was a strong possibility you were going to lose it, and you already took title of it, so it's your problem. Says the Gemara, it's even possible that even if he did take responsibility for it, he can't back out of the deal, because he only took responsibility to pay him back if the people who are complaining actually win their case, take the field away from Shimon. Then he'll have to replace it. As long as that didn't happen, he can't say, I want to back out of the deal. The other one could say, Reuven could say, who says they'll be successful? Just because people are complaining and opening a case doesn't mean that they'll actually end up happening. I'm going to wait until you actually lose the field, and then I'll take my responsibility. You can't say you're backing out of the deal now because you don't have to go to court and take it away from me. When it happens, we'll worry about it.